Okay, so I've been thinking a little bit about meaning lately, and I guess the degree to which meaning isn't measurable and does seem to be significant and important. So many of the thinkers of the 20th century, they designated the human, at least as the human had become through the dissolve of religious belief systems, the rise of science. It's like there are those two fronts together have created potentially a vacuum of meaning in people's lives. And so as religious purposes and religious forms of self-understanding and I guess modes of self-sacrifice aligned with religious dogma, as those gave a kind of purpose to people and they helped people understand themselves, even if we're now going to say in an illusory way. The self-understandings weren't illusory. Now, what they referred to may have not been factual, but to the degree that people were able to shape their lives, grow themselves, I mean, some of the art that was created, imagining that God was going to look at it, it didn't matter whether or not God looked at it. Somehow, them believing God would look at it was the impetus to create the art, the music, that was that magnificent, that had to be that perfect. Okay, so there are principles there of meaning construction and self-sacrifice and commitment, imagining that God would be the ultimate witness to it. And again, there was lots of forms of meaning provided to people to accept suffering, to try to, again, to create works of art, to situate their own humble lots, the shortcomings of their desires. There were lots of narratives and, I say, sort of parts of stories within religious text, within religious dogma, that were sort of the fabric by which people stitched the meaning of their lives. As that was, as those various threads were pulled and the tapestry was starting to unravel, science took greater grip, and some notion of evolution, I think, now sort of pervades. And as much as it's important to understand evolution, to see ourselves as the product of evolution, I think we also want to see, that we're more than simply reducible, say, to consumption and reproduction. That evolutionary biology has, enabled us to focus upon some of those basic, we'll call it common biological functions through which life perpetuates itself. But you don't want to call consumption and reproduction the meaning of life. You don't even want to call it the purpose. I mean, to struggle and to get in a haggle over, well, is it the purpose of life? Is it not the meaning of life? What exactly is consumption and reproduction, and how do those relate to life? Well, those introduce philosophy and speculation and thought, and achieving a intelligible, coherent worldview. The struggle to achieve that, is that consumption? Is that reproduction? So I don't think it is. The struggle for a coherent philosophy is part of the human condition, the late, modern westernized, or we'll call it what it means for us to try to make a life. There are so many different horizons in which meaning has to be sought beyond biological sustenance. It's not, your life's meaning isn't to be had in being well fed and having lots of children. And it may be that children are part of that. I don't think that it has to be that. I think that the trouble is the number of people who think that having children will bring meaning to their lives. No, I think children can be a source of meaning to a person who has devoted their lives to their children being, the meaningful part of their lives. But many people can just have children and ignore them, not take care of them at all. I think the question is, as science has become the narrative, and as the grip of religion has waned, what are the resources for people in their struggle to make a meaningful life? I think there is a real truth. People want to get at do I think there's an objective truth? I think the objective truth is the human as we know it, as we experience it, has been sentenced to a kind of agency and freedom and an anxiety and all kinds of despair and feelings of hopelessness and feelings of courage and all of those kinds of emotions that are related to the struggle to make a meaningful life for oneself. I think some people seem to recognize that earlier on than other people. I think some people try to dismiss it. They flee from it. They say that the struggle for meaning isn't real. I think there are other people who don't give much thought about it, but simply produce the humble, homegrown fabric of meaning by cultivating themselves in a craft, or growing their own ability to think through study, through openness to history. There are people who do it through meditation, through dietary practice, through athletic prowess, through artistic accomplishments. There's just so many different horizons on which people, they engage the world with their hands, with their bodies, and again, it's a real world that has resistance and has, I guess, all of the kinds of complexities that allow for a natural achievement of meaning, a natural achievement of it. And I guess, again, the struggle is, how does one create a meaningful life today? I think to say that there is no such thing as meaning or it's a hoax, I think that's a lie. I think to say, are there some things that are more meaningful than others? I think that starts to move in the right direction. And then I think we really get in the right direction when we start to say, why are some things very, very meaningful but too costly? Like, what is the price for people's right to meaning?